Hey everyone and welcome to Storytime. My name is Jake and today we are going to be looking at the subreddit r/maliciouscompliance. So sit back, relax and enjoy some satisfying stories. A contract can be used by both parties. This happened some years ago when I had just gotten hired for a part-time position in a retail store. All was good until the summer got close, and he offered me a full-time job until the summer ended, which I gladly took. Less than 2 weeks into the summer, he changed my hours back to part-time. I hadn't thought about getting the temporary full-time thing in writing, as he seemed like a trustworthy guy. It made no sense as I did a good job and helped out with things my contract didn't mention when I had the time, as I get bored quickly. I found out that even though he has years of experience in the field, he had massively overspent on the wage bill and had to cut down to avoid being fired by head office. When I voiced my concern over this, his only response was, "I'm only obliged to give you 20 hours a week as the contract stated." I wanted to chew him out verbally, but I kept my cool and decided that if he wanted to play that game, I would too. When I got home that night, I read my entire contract and noted the clauses that I could use. One clause stated that my responsibilities was unloading the trucks, taking care of the stockroom, and keeping the shelves stocked. Another mentioned that I shouldn't do other tasks as their insurance only covered me for the specific areas I was meant to work. Next day, he told me to help out the cashiers as the lines were long. Sorry, can't do that. As the contract states, that isn't part of my job here, and I should refrain from doing that. You can find it in my contract as clauses 9A and 9B. He was fuming, face totally red, and he just walked away without saying anything. Another thing I'd noticed in my contract is that besides my 30-minute lunch break, I had a 10-minute break I could take when I wanted. So, I gave him 5 minutes, walked into his office, and told him I was taking my 10-minute break. "What are you talking about? You only have one break and that's for lunch." "My contract says otherwise. It's in clause 10. When I got back from the break, he asked me to clean something up out in the store. I couldn't believe that he couldn't take a hint. Sorry, can't do. Clause 9A and 9B prevents me from doing it. Next day, a customer asked for help with something. Sorry, can't do, it's not my job, find someone else. My boss heard about this and yelled at me, but I managed to stay calm and answered with the clauses that prevented me from helping the customer. Legally, I was in the right and he couldn't do anything, but I could see the hatred in his eyes. I was still on a trial period, which meant he could fire me with only 24 hours notice, but I could also resign with only 24 hours notice. I knew that when summer ended and everyone was back from their vacations, he would fire me right away. I had started looking for other jobs and it was all going right, so I decided to quit at the worst time possible when it showed itself. At the last week of summer, he had to fire someone and suspend another for stealing from the store. It was the perfect time to quit and leave him badly undermanned for the week. 24 hours and 1 minute before my next shift, I sent him my resignation before I sent a message to my coworkers about how they should remember to take all their breaks and not violate their contract by doing stuff they aren't allowed to do. I heard it gave him a little chaos when people followed my advice. Oh, that last bit was perfect. He was probably thinking, well, I know it's going to be annoying, but at least no one else will do this. And then they went and told everyone to do the same and he's in the same position. Change verified. My company has to keep records of all the changes we make to client code. We use paper forms that are generated via a proprietary change management system that is at least 2 decades old to track when a code has been modified, who modified it, who approved it, and who published the approved modification. It's a whole process that literally takes about 20 minutes away from doing actual productive work to go and collect signatures. Our manager recently added a new layer to this system that has us verifying our changes. Now, we always verify our changes, but now we have to make a record that we have verified our changes. This involves the team that publishes the changes to our servers, messaging us through our messaging platform, and letting us know that our change has been published. This accompanies a change number, for example 51476, that is changed in our system. He requested that we respond to that message with an acknowledgement that we have verified that the change has been completed. Now, we have honoured our manager for as long as I have been here to move to an all-digital change management system. We could even integrate it with our code versioning system to make it even easier for everyone and waste less of our time, but no dice. So we went along with it. I'm not one to ever take stuff too seriously, so I started having fun with my responses. mcpux, change 71277 has been published. Give me a V, give me an E, give me an RIFIED. mcpux, change 32911 has been published. Verificado, mi amigo. mcpux, change 16144 has been published. Change number 16,144 has been verified. We got a laugh out of it, and I thought nothing of it. The following week, my manager gets upset at my responses. mcpux, everyone else just says change X verified, and that's it. I want all of your responses to look like that too. So, no more fun. I found out from our publishing team that the reason he cracked down on me is that he is using an automated third-party tool to track our responses by listening for the word verified in the messaging channel we use to communicate our publishes. My fun was ruining his convoluted system. I hold no ill will against my manager, but I was a little bummed by his crackdown on my jokes, so I did what I was told. mcpux, change 16190 has been published. Change 16190 verified. Notice anything? Go ahead and do a search on this page for the word verified. You'll notice that last one doesn't light up. That's because it's not a V at the beginning, it's a V, the Cherokee letter do, but it looks like a V. So now when he runs his system, he'll see that my verifications are still not coming in, but my responses look exactly like he wants them to. You see, now that right there is malicious compliance. Like, that is so, it's so evil but perfect. My manager voluntarily gave me my 2 weeks notice. Last year, I worked at a small non-profit thrift store, where my manager, or general manager of the store, was very passive-aggressive, and felt threatened anytime I pointed out the flaws in her sales ideas, or tried to improve certain workflows. After a few months, and being assaulted by her husband for catching him stealing a TV, and her blaming me rather than admit that if I was a customer, what would have made that different? I started looking for a second job. Now, I was only part-time there and wanted more money and found another great job. As soon as I told her this, she was very upset and said, "Well, I don't think you can handle 2 jobs, so I'm voluntarily giving you your 2 weeks notice now." I adamantly refused, saying that no, my intentions were to work 2 jobs with this being my primary. She said, "Well, think it over and we'll talk next week." Next week rolls around and she says she already told her supervisors about it, to which I responded, "Look, you can fire me if you want, but you cannot voluntarily give me my 2 weeks notice. I've been the most consistent worker you've had all year, and I don't appreciate this." She shrugged it off and ignored me. Well, next week rolled around, and turns out literally everyone working there, including her, contracted a heavy flu that made it impossible for the others to come in. Well, the day of my last 2 weeks notice had arrived, and I got a phone call from her practically begging me to come in on my day off, and all I said was, Sorry, you voluntarily quit me, so I don't work there anymore. I went in just to see the carnage, and she was all alone having to deal with the usual awful customers and receive donations for at least a week. Needless to say, I don't feel bad for it. I don't think that manager knows the definition of voluntarily. Overly compliant at the hospital. So, at the hospital I work at, the policy is whenever you enter into a unit or exit, you have to perform hand hygiene. Pretty much just sanitize your hands. The sanitizers have sensors in them and somehow monitor the percentage of people who enter the unit and perform hygiene, and each unit gets a weekly score of how well they perform. Thing is, I guess they do that for every one of the new sanitizer dispensers. Well, one person on the floor has one next to his office, and since it's not on a hospital unit, he's never doing patient care, he doesn't clean his hands every time he enters and leaves his office. It's just an office attached to the hallway in one of the hospital wings. So, about 2 weeks ago, he got a compliance score of like 20% or something hung on his door, since they go and hang the score for each area based on what the sensors tell the system. I don't know how, but I guess he didn't like having a red sign hung outside his door that stated he wasn't compliant, and managed to get his compliance rate up to 102.7% this week. Hey, well, with 102%, he's definitely gonna be clean, isn't he? You want a house rule that unbalances the game that severely? Alright. I love tabletop games. Board games, card games, dice games, anything interesting that gets us talking or makes great memories. I tend towards complex strategy games or adult themes when I'm with my friends, but when I'm with my family, we have to keep towards the super basic, inoffensive, and uncomplicated. I also have a head for numbers. It's a reason I went into accounting, auditing, and I'd like to steer into being an actuary at some point. This gives me the ability to see how certain microcosms will play out in terms of in-game balance to a degree. One of the easiest go-to games to play with my family has been Rummy, and there are any number of versions of this game with their own rules. My oldest sister is convinced that I'm super focused on winning, when really I just like playing. Games are a great way of having an activity for people to share. I tend to win because I'm actually playing towards the goal and thinking ahead more than my current turn. A trait that is somehow unique to me in my family. She decided that she wanted to try a house rule / variant she'd come across, where to deal starting hand, you deal one card facing up, and then that player gets that many more cards for their hand, with the face cards being 11 to 13 and an ace being 15. The dealer would then deal themselves one additional card face up for a wild card. I tried to explain that that would create a huge imbalance to the players such that the player with the fewest cards has the least options, while the players with more cards can stack sets back to back. My warning was unheeded, and we started. I was to her left, so she started dealing with me, and I got a 2. She laughs because it was the very thing I was just complaining about. My mother gets an 8, my youngest sister a 5, and older sister deals herself an ace. She gets 15 more cards and then deals another face up for the wild, a 2. No, I don't believe she stacked the deck or palmed a card, she isn't the type. I think this was all merely pure irony. I'm left of the dealer, so I go first. I look at my hand. I have the first 2 I was dealt, a second 2, and another card. The 2s are wild, and all we need to set down is any set of 3. Literally all I do, on my first and only turn, is draw a card, set my hand down, discard the card I drew, and go out. I get 200 plus points for having 2 wilds, and because you lose points for every card left in your hand at the end of the round, my sister is zapped for her massive hand. You didn't have to go out. My only other option was to hold on to my cards and risk someone else going out on me and zapping me. But it's the first turn. I believe I warned you that this made the game unbalanced. Oh, fine, we won't play that way anymore. We haven't played with that rule since. It still serves as my story about why I like games that have a proper, fair and balanced start for all players. Well, I guess he tried to warn her.
Hey everyone, I hope you all had a really good day and that you enjoyed that video. If you want to check out some other videos, then click on screen right now, or check out the playlist down below. If you enjoyed that video, then please do leave a like. And if you want to submit your own stories, then you can do so by joining the Discord in the top link in the description. But thank you so much for watching, and I will see you very soon.